We're going to we're going to kind of work through a lot of these because the video goes really super fast. Okay, just for fun here, Jack, how long have you been a member of the Nazarene Church? Do you remember what year?
Probably 1972.
1972. Aunt B, you remember how long?
About 60 years.
60 years.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah. Frida, you know how long?
Since about 62.
1962. Yes. All right, Marge. Do you remember how long? When do you remember how long you've been a member of the Nazarene Church?
And this church.
Just in general.
How long have I been?
Yep. A member.
A member?
Yep.
Well, I've been a member here since 1984.
Okay.
I went to years for Nazarene first
Yep.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Let's see. That would be how many years? 20.
It's about 35 years here. Do you remember what year you became a member at Petersburg?
I've been a member of
The Petersburg Church? Yeah.
It was before 1976, I know, because we celebrated the,
Bicentennial?
100th year or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 76.
Yeah.
I guess it was before that.
Yeah.
I went to a Baptist for a while.
Okay.
Out in the country.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Aunt B's got I think Aunt B's got the award for the day. 60, what did you say, 62 years? 60 years? It's a long time to be a Nazarene. And here's the thing, I have this conversation with a lady in town a lot. She goes to a different church. And she always says, well, why do you have to be a member of the Nazarene Church? That's a good question. Why do we ask for membership? Why do we talk about membership? Why is that something that we promote as Nazarenes? Sure, we want the commitment. We don't want you to just show up to church and just be part of who we are and not commit to the church. Absolutely, commitment's a huge one. What else? Accountability, sure. Yep, accountability is definitely part of it. There's one that I've been thinking about is when you come to this local church, you give to this church, right? We have mission fields inside of our community, inside of our town, inside of our county that we work with and we're actively participants with. But when you give to this church, you not only give to this little tiny local church, but you give to the Nazarene Church globally. So you get to become part of a bigger group than just our little 100-person church. And think of the impact that we can have worldwide compared to what we can have with just our little tiny church. So we become members of the church because we want to not only be part of the local church, but part of the global church. And it just increases our reach, our ability to impact people all over the world. Today we're talking about session 3. This is Covenant of Christian Conduct. Anderson, you ready back there? All right.
Sorry.
So in your manual, you can look these up. You can find these. Okay, so we're going to kind of work through these. 28.1 is where this would be located at in the manual. It says, we believe that all Scripture is applicable to contemporary society and constitutes the basic Christian ethic and ought to be obeyed in all particulars. I know that sounds like something that you're probably sitting there going, well, yeah, the Bible, it's relevant. But we've talked about this in Sunday school class several times. There's a movement inside of the church, where they are encouraging people to unhitch from the Old Testament. We can't use the Old Testament anymore. It just doesn't make sense to use that in our current culture and climate. We say yes. We believe that the entire Bible is applicable to contemporary society.
28.2 says, we understand that these are guides and helps to a holy living. Guys, the entire Bible is good for you. It's good for you. The entire thing. Not just the New Testament, not just the red letters that a lot of people hold to, that Jesus said it, so that's what we should do. Guys, the whole thing. There's so much that we can learn in our current society from the Old Testament. There's so much we can learn. Okay, we need to use it all. 28.3 says, we are a denomination based on love, and one redemptive arena of love involves the special relationship Jesus had and commanded his disciples to have with the poor of this world, that his church ought first to keep itself simple and free from an emphasis on wealth and extravagance, and second, to give itself to the care, feeding, clothing, and shelter of the poor and the marginalized. We talked about this last week. One of the fundamentals, the principles that the Nazarene Church was built on was the poor. Were addicts, people who are struggling, alcoholics. That's really where the heart of the Nazarene Church began. And we should continue that into the 21st century, into 2021. We should continue that. Okay, we need to seek after everyone. One of the things that I love here is it says to keep things simple and free from an emphasis on wealth and extravagance. You are never, ever, ever going to hear a Nazarene preacher talk or preach a wealth, health gospel. If you give $100, you're going to get $5,000 in return. You're never going to hear a Nazarene preacher preach that. You turn on your TV at home to the televangelists that fly around in their private jets, you're going to hear that preached. You're not going to ever hear that here because our focus is on the poor. Our focus is going to be on the poor. Next section, 28.4. In listing practices to be avoided, we recognize that no catalog, however inclusive, can hope to encompass all forms of evil throughout the world. Therefore, it is imperative that our people earnestly seek the aid of the Spirit in cultivating a sensitivity to evil that transcends the mere letter of the law, remembering to test everything, hold on to the good, avoid every kind of evil. Remember I said the Nazarene manual is evolving, it changes. Frida, what kind of pants do you have on today? What is wrong with you? You cannot be a Nazarene. Lisa Lynn? Those socks are definitely out.
I don't even have real pants on.
Marge, she's got a skirt on, so she's good. Marge is good.
I don't know though, Mark. It's a little bit short there. You better be careful. You better watch yourself. Don't want me showing off the goods. Guys, I'm telling you, like the Nazarene denomination, the manual has changed over time.
And thank goodness it has evolved. You guys remember this? I've got a 1956 manual at home. It was my grandpa's. It's falling apart. It's lovely. It's great. But I went through that sucker. I wanted to see what was in there. All kinds of stuff. You can't swim in public swimming pools. You can't dance. No movies. You can't go to a movie theater. Earrings. Absolutely. And the thing is, like, when we look back at those things, we kind of giggle and smirk and laugh. But I understand where they were coming from. I understand. I don't know if that was necessarily probably the best way to go about things, to give a big, gigantic, long list of don't do this. I don't think that was probably the best way to do things, but I think that at the time period, for something 70 years old, I understand their thoughts. We can kind of look back now and we can kind of giggle about it, but that's one of the things that the Nazarene Church has always done is it's called us to a deeper relationship. A deeper relationship. I'm not telling you that every denomination out there is just like surface level, because they're not. I give my buddy a hard time now. He's a Baptist preacher, and he uses the word sanctification a lot now. And I just laugh and I just say, oh, you guys have finally caught up, right? We've only been preaching sanctification for 150 years, and now you guys are finally catching on. Good job. Welcome to the game. Welcome to the party. You're only a little bit late. But I think that just as a church universal, we are understanding things better. So this is explaining that there's not going to be just an all-inclusive list of things that you don't do that's going to help you to get to that deeper relationship. It still ultimately goes back to test everything, hold to good, and avoid every kind of evil. Guys, I'm just telling you right now, if you're tinkering with evil, if you're playing with fire, you're going to get burned. If you continually go up to the line, see how close I can get to the line, see how close I can get to the line, you're going to step over the line. Your heart is not going to be as sensitive to things. 28.5, pastors and leaders are expected to teach fundamental biblical truths. You better be hearing the Bible preached in a Nazarene church. 28.6, education is of the utmost importance from childhood through adulthood. We believe without question that you should be learning from childhood all the way through adulthood. I absolutely love that Pauline, you're 90 what years old? My goodness, 97 years old, is still here to learn. Learning, education should never stop. If we think that we've arrived and we've got it all figured out, oh boy, that's a scary spot to be in. We should never stop learning. We should always continually seek after education. 29, the next section. This is kind of a list kind of going through and with reasons as to why the Nazarene Church promotes abstinence. What's abstinence mean? Refraining from. Complete refraining from. And again, this is parts where I think we're going to have some interesting discussion because this is even discussions within the Nazarene Church. I'm just telling you, I know in my heart in the next 10, 15 years, you'll see some pretty major changes to the Nazarene Manual. Just my personal opinion, I think you're going to see some pretty significant changes to our manual that have been in there for over 100 years. But this is one of the things that we talk about. Okay, and so it should be avoided. 29.1, entertainments that are subversive of the Christian ethic. Entertainments that are subversive to the Christian ethic. What do you think that means? Yeah, you're reading it, you bunch of cheaters. Sure. Avoid things that are maybe a little bit offensive. Like we said, if you just rely on the line, if you're constantly coming up to the line and checking the line, well, how far can I go? I don't know. If it kind of makes you hurt a little bit inside whenever you're watching a movie and the F-bomb gets dropped 87,000 times, by 87,000 times you're watching that movie, it really doesn't affect you as much anymore. You ever heard the frog and hot water syndrome? This is reminding us, listen, we have to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. We cannot get calloused in our hearts. We cannot allow those things to be in our hearts. We cannot allow that callousness. Man, I'm telling you now, like TV in general, it's getting just ridiculous. Even just like commercials and stuff have been sensualized so much anymore that, you know, just like, my goodness, the lingerie commercials and stuff like that, the weird stuff that's on TV anymore that are commercials. And it's desensitizing us. We really need to be careful, and that's what this is talking about here. We suggest that the standard given to John Wesley by his mother says, whatever weakens your reason, impairs the tenderness of your conscience, obscures your sense of God, or takes off the relish of spiritual things, whatever increases the authority of your body over mine, that thing for you is sin.